Civil liberties. Palestine Action. Genocide resistors added to terrorism proscription list. We are being slow-walked into an openly totalitarian regime, while the organised labour movement sits idly by. The only way to have unjust laws overturned is to make them unworkable. This vital task cannot be left to conscientious individuals or small groups. Workers must demand that their trade unions and other mass organisations build a campaign of resistance that will force the ruling class into retreat. Proletarian Writers, Friday 1st of August 2025. The news that Palestine Action, PA, has been proscribed as a terrorist organisation by the British government has been met with fierce opposition from Palestine supporting workers across the country. Even many left liberal types seem to be shocked that a non-violent direct action organisation whose only aim is to stop a genocide could be so arbitrarily slapped with the terrorist label. To understand more about the sheer arbitrariness of the proscription process, no criteria required, we recommend Craig Murray's article, Richard Medhurst and the Right to Armed Resistance, 20th of August 2024. For those unaware of the details of this latest case, PA was a group of activists whose entire purpose was to target any aspect of the war machine connected with Israel. They aimed both to highlight the presence of these production facilities on British soil and to physically prevent planes and weapons destined for Israel from being produced. The latter aim was pursued either through lock-ons that blocked arms factory gates or by breaking into facilities and physically smashing equipment. These direct actions were carried out with the expressed intention of forcing a political change in the ruling class's policy towards the genocide in Gaza. While many naive liberals claim that opposition to genocide is a purely moral issue that is above politics, in reality, the demand for an end to British support for the Zionist state is very much a political one, since it directly cuts against the interests of Anglo-American imperialism and its ability to control the resources and dominate the people of the Middle East. For the imperialists, an attack on its profits and domination is the very definition of terrorism, and far more of a threat than such genuinely terrorist, against the masses, outfits like Al-Qaeda, ISIS or National Action. To think that the imperialists would allow such an organisation freely to continue its activism merely because it sticks to non-violent methods, i.e. avoids causing physical harm to people, or because its activities can be justified under international law, which officially enshrines the right to oppose genocide and is supposed to be above all national laws, is to indulge credulity too far. Rulers used test cases to stop workers noticing dangerous precedents. It is worth noting that although it has been claimed that Palestine Action is the first non-violent organisation to be banned for anti-genocide, pro-Palestine activism, this is not actually true. This dubious honour actually belongs to the Sunni Islamist separatist organisation Hizb ut-Tahrir, an international group that campaigns for Muslims to reject the societies they live in and instead come together to restore the old Ottoman-era days of a single Muslim superstate. Hizb ut-Tahrir British chapter was proscribed in January 2024, following a peaceful pro-Palestine protest in which participants reportedly chanted "Jihad, Jihad," ostensibly in support of the Palestinian armed resistance. The difference, of course, is that, unlike Palestine Action, Hizb ut-Tahrir had very little public support and was generally reviled by Muslims because of its reputation for troublemaking at mosques and the promotion of separatist ideas that most Muslims oppose, by liberals because of its various anti-LGBT, anti-feminist and anti-Western stances, and by anti-imperialists because of the group's active support for imperialism's dirty wars against Libya and Syria, and its probable role as a deliberately provocative asset of British intelligence. As a result, its proscription faced virtually no public opposition and was waved through by officialdom, with barely anyone noticing the dangerous precedent that was being set. And this was almost certainly the whole point. It is a tried and tested tactic of the ruling class, whenever it wishes to introduce draconian legislation, to choose or create a deeply unpopular initial target, knowing that opposition will thus be muted or non-existent. One of the earliest victims of a coordinated social media deplatforming, for example, which was combined with eviction from various payment platforms, was right-wing US conspiracy theorist Alex Jones. Most progressives either remained silent or actively cheered the attack on Jones, seeing it as some kind of anti-fascist action by the corporate executives at Silicon Valley. It was only later, when progressive groups and individuals were being targeted with the same measures, that it became apparent what a dangerous power they had allowed the ruling class to adopt. Moving against the real target, working class anti-imperialist resistance. Given the trade union and anti-war leaders' criminal failure to organise a mass campaign of non-cooperation with the Gaza genocide, and given the crisis into which the imperialist Zionist proxy state has been pitchforked following its failure to defeat the Palestinian resistance and the failure of the imperialist regime change operation in Iran, the British ruling class clearly feels it is now necessary and possible to come down like a ton of bricks on Palestine Action. Whether the British public will allow this, too, to pass remains to be seen. Waves of protest against PA's proscription and mass arrests as a result have been taking place across British cities and show no sign of dying down. So it is just possible that the outrage of British workers will do what the trade union movement has so signally failed to do and make this very unjust law unworkable. Meanwhile, as PA itself stated in one of its last public messages before it was forced underground, the imperialists may be able to ban action carried out under the name of Palestine Action, but this in no way means that direct action against the Gaza genocide will stop. For as long as the British ruling class and its government and institutions remain involved in the mass slaughter of Palestinian people, there are bound to be groups and individuals who take it on themselves to continue where Palestine Action has been forced to leave off. For our part, while we understand the frustration that leads to such individual action, which stems from frustration and despair at the lack of any coordinated working class programme, we will continue to insist that the real responsibility for preventing British imperialist complicity in genocide and other crimes in Palestine, as elsewhere, lies with the British masses. It is easy to believe that we, as individual workers, are powerless to intervene, but this is simply not the case. We have the power, but only as a collective, which means we need organisation to harness and use our power. In order to do this, we urgently need to break all the links that tie our unions, our anti-war movement and other mass organisations to the Labour Party, which is a servant of imperialism and a handmaid to this genocide, as it has been to so many other colonial crimes throughout its existence. We need to depose all Labour-aligned leaders and dismantle the Labour-aligned, capitalist-serving bureaucracy that prevents our organisations fulfilling their role as directors of working-class energy and action, and turns them instead into organs of control over the working class. And we need to build pressure at the grassroots to demand, alongside the changes above, the urgent building of a mass campaign of non-cooperation with the imperialist war machine. British workers collectively need to stop making and moving arms destined for imperialist and Zionist wars. They need to refuse to put Zionist products on supermarket shelves and refuse to write, print or broadcast genocide sanitizing propaganda. Not only should we be demanding the de-proscription of Palestine Action, we should be building a movement that takes over responsibility for stopping the genocide and rendering such isolated actions unnecessary.